Being strong is all well and good. However, if you're slow, then you are an absolute liability. In the same breath as if you are ridiculously jacked and lean, but you have no athletic function, then it is quite simply useless. So if you are somebody who is training to be an athletic weapon, you want to be robust, you want to be resilient, you want to be capable, you want to be adaptable and have a broad spectrum, then dynamic effort training isn't something that should be optional in your program. It is something that should be essential. And today, I'm going to show you a simple way how you can add that to your training program. Let's go. Let's dive in to what on earth is dynamic effort training, because that's probably the question that you've got sat there going, Dean, what are you going on about? The easiest way I can explain dynamic effort training is if you are somebody sat there right now who is approaching their 20s or their 30s and you want to stay athletic, powerful, fast, strong, explosive, long into the later stages of your health and fitness journey, dynamic efforts and concurrent dynamic efforts using explosive training is something that should just simply stay and remain in your program. It's not plucking random work together and getting you to sprint here and jump there and throw that and catch this. It's not that. For us, it's about one simple word that we like to use, which is called rate of force development. Now, what's the goal with that? Well, the goal is quite simple. I want to teach you how to produce the most amount of force as rapidly as possible with intention and get you to keep doing that long into your 30s, 40s, and 50s, because power is one of the first qualities that you naturally lose when you start aging. And it happens at quite a deteriorating rate from your 30s and 40s. So this is why this conversation we're going to be having today, this video I'm going to explain to you, is going to give you a breakdown of a training session that I did, a dynamic effort concurrent training session that I did, and one that I use on a frequently reoccurring regular basis, week on, week in, week out, that allows me to stay athletic and stay powerful, which I have these traits and these qualities. And people often ask me, damn, mate, you're so strong and powerful. How the hell did you do it? Well, using stuff like this, stuff that was termed by people like Louis Simmons from Westside Barbell, things that we're seeing in current strength and conditioning research and practice, things that the elite use every single day. And we're dragging this information and we're putting it into something that you can carry forward. So let's dive in to what it is that I did and how we get after it, because it's really simple. So why I train this way? Because it allows me to be an animal in the gym, for want of a better word. And there's a few things I want you to understand before we dive deeper into some of the research, some of the literature, some of the science behind strength dynamic efforts and how strength and conditioning world has coined it. But let's just start with some basic principles that you probably need to understand. The key thing we're trying to improve is something called FD, rate of force development. Remember what I said that was. It's producing force as rapidly as you possibly can with the most amount of intent. Whatever that existing or external force is that's against you, may it be a load, may it be a weight, may it be your own body sprinting. And if we can increase this output, it makes you a better athlete across a number of different components of sport, whether you're into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, judo, even into team sports like football, athletics, rugby, all of these type of variables of training, all of these sporting type of event, these things need some form of dynamic effort training behind it to allow you to be athletic and powerful. Otherwise, you're never going to improve. So the principle number one is really understand what's the stimulus. We're trying to train rate of force development. That's the first thing that I want you to take away. The second thing that we're looking at is more often than not, we're using sub-maximal loads. Now, this will typically be anywhere from 60 to 70% and less than that. We can develop power using body weight and no load at all. That can be a resisting force. But we can also, into the barbell world and using clean derivatives, use 60 to 70% of our RMs to help us improve rate of force development for athletic performance. So it's really important that we're using these loads. What's the goal? Well, we want to move them fast and we want to remain and stay as powerful as possible because it helps with things like coordination, it helps with power development, it helps with neural drive and helping the system communicate better. So there's lots of keys that we're taking away here when we understand what that looks like. But the bottom line behind everything that we discuss when we talk about dynamic effort training is we want to move fast. We want to move with intent. And the most important thing here, ladies and gents, is not about fatigue. It's low fatiguing. We don't need thousands upon thousands of sets and reps in a session to be able to get a stimulus. You will be surprised at what you can accomplish just by nailing the basics. And I'm going to give you some regressions that you can take away today that I actually hope are going to help you in your journey with health and performance and health and fitness. So let's dive into the session that I did this week. So give you a really key breakdown of what that session looks like. Now, before we start, obviously I did a warm-up. I made sure that I used a ramp protocol loosely. Now, quite simply, something I like to do, I like to get on the assault bike and do 3 to 4 minutes, just getting blood flow through the system. So I started with 3 or 4 minutes on the assault bike. I then moved into some hip mobility work. I then moved into some passive hangs to open up the shoulder girdle. And then I also used some front rack banded stretches just to improve that front rack position because the clean derivative was going to be part of my program. And you'll see a little bit about that in a second. Following that, I did some depth jumps. I did some vertical jumps, and I was pretty much good to go for the session. Took me the best part of about 8 to 10 minutes, and I was in a really good spot to then move into my A series, which I'm going to show you now. So my first exercise pattern that I hit was a hang power clean that you're seeing on this screen. Now, there's a few things I want you to pull away from this exercise pattern. First of all, as my opening priming set, what's the purpose here? Well, the purpose here for me is about improving, first and foremost, triple extension. What the hell is triple extension? Well, it's this movement that you're seeing on the screen right now. It's that movement there that we are looking at improving. Now, you might be asking why that movement specifically. Because if I take this movement and even put it in a single leg pattern, whether you sprint, whether you run fast, whether you kick a football, whether you bound forward, whether you change direction, when you come to that toe off point, you're going to be in this position that you're seeing on the screen. So if I can train that pattern, progressively load it, and improve my body's ability to go through full body extension using triple extension, that's going to make me a better athlete in my sport. And I've seen this in judo, I've seen this in mixed martial arts, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I've seen this in boxing, in football, in rugby, in hockey, in athletics. Triple extension is a universal pattern that we see consistently across the board when it comes to training your body to generate force and push through the floor and extend through the hips as fast as we can. So the very first thing and why I've used this as a priming exercise in part of the dynamic effort session day is I started with a hang power clean to improve my body's coordination with this movement, going through triple extension, trying to prime the nervous system and go through full body explosive. Now, if you can't do this exercise, don't worry. I've got you covered. Some really simple things that you can do. As a regression, a kettlebell swing with a heavy load is something that's fantastic. If you've never heard of a guy called Dan John, go and watch Dan John. Dan John is an absolute brilliant coach, and he advocates so much for using kettlebells, particularly because of how impressive they are when it comes to a modality that helps you improve rapid triple extension through the hip, knee, and ankle, which is something, again, that we've seen in so much sport. So this is a really easy one to do. Another example could be trap bar or hex bar jump squats. They still train that triple extension pattern. They still train you to go through hip, knee, and ankle extension. You can also use things like the clean pull as another area that you might want to work on. I've even seen people layer in here accommodating resistance models where they've used bands and they've done banded trap bar deadlifts to help them improve this level of rate of force development. So for my A series, this was the first exercise that I challenged. And the first thing that I really wanted to work on was just getting the movement right, going through 5 sets at 3 repetitions, siding the bar, focusing on really rapidly extending and getting into a good catch position, and also building that armor up here as well. In BJJ and rugby, it's really important that we've got this strength upper body too that help us with our sport. So something to really think about. I then increased this stimulus. So I did 5 sets of 3 here, working from 60 up to 70%. So for me, started about 70, 75 kilos and worked my way up to around about 90 kilos, which is good for me, about 60, 70% of my RM. I then moved into this second exercise, which you're seeing here. And now this was a power clean from the foot, doing around, in this instance specifically, I did 3 sets of 3 repetitions. So I hit a power clean from the floor. I took a little brief moment to make sure I could set up. And again, the key adaptation here, triple extension and moving as violently and as explosively as possible. Now, doing sets of 3s and sets of 2s in this specifically allowed me to push that stimulus, that athletic power stimulus, a little bit further. And I moved from 60 to 70% and went up to some submaximal loads in and around 80%. Still just off of that dynamic effort spectrum curve where I'm building a little bit of strength here. There was a bit of crossover, but a fantastic exercise nonetheless as a B series priming movement for me. Let's move into the C series here. So the second exercise, or the third exercise in this, was the Anderson bench press. Now, some of you might be asking, well, the Anderson bench press removes something called a stretch reflex. Now, what you're seeing here on the video is you're seeing me set up using both of these racks that you can see on the left and on the right hand side. Now, these racks in their entirety, they just sit there static. So what I've removed is I've removed something called a stretch reflex. I've removed, put it this way, all the force is coming from a dead stop movement. I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can, and the only action I can perform is a concentric action. If I took the barbell off and wanted to work some maximal strength, for example, I would have a stretch reflex because I'd pull it off, I'd come down, you would see that stretch reflex happening in the muscle tissue, and then I'd push through that movement once again. So one of the things to consider here is I've just removed that. And the thing I'm focusing on with the Anderson bench press, in this position particularly, in this exercise particularly, I did 5 sets of 5, working at around about 65 to 75%. All centered on me pushing as much concentric force as possible. And together, that really helped with me improving that starting strength and that trunk control from that ground position. This is really applicable to me because of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We often find ourselves in positions on the floor where we're in here and we're in guard. And what I want to try and do in this position is I want to try and break guard, and I want to try and push that individual off me as quick as I can to move myself away from that threat and that danger area to then get into a more dominant position. Where else would this be relevant? Well, it might be relevant in something to do with rugby, rucking and mauling, for example, being in that position, pushing people off you. That might come up quite regularly. If you're in boxing, remember, you don't pull back and then throw because they're seeing it coming. You are coming from this position and you are punching only using a concentric action. So again, we're trying to generate force from a compromised position, or we're in this locked position here, great for grapplers, for fighters, because I want to build a reactive upper body that can be fast and can be strong, because that's the focus that I need it for. So this Anderson bench press was a great exercise as part of this first C series primer, my C1 exercise, if you will, where it was compound related and I was really focused on pushing as much as I could. Now, if you were wanting to maybe regress this, you could do a dumbbell floor press if you wanted to. If you wanted to progress this, we could do some accommodated resistance work. We can stick a band on this, and if I'm pressing up, the band, the resistance as it extends, is only going to make the exercise harder. So think about that when we're doing this pattern as well. Do we want to progress this? What's the stimulus I'm chasing? What type of adaptation am I looking for with this exercise? So we've gone through our hang power clean as a bit of a priming movement. We've done my power clean, which was part of that B series where we're really hitting some of those submaximal loads. We then went into this Anderson bench press, focusing on concentric, explosive upper body power. Great for those of you that are athletes in that domain and you need that stimulus and that adaptation. The third exercise was the fourth exercise, was a superset. Now, the first exercise in this superset series was a half kneeling landmine press. Now, you might be looking at this and going, well, where's the explosive power? The intent is coming from that explosive concentric drive. I'm not releasing the bar simply because it's just not the right environment to do so. So for me, again, I'm trying to build unilateral explosive force in a bit more of a vertical plane. I'm trying to push through into that position overhead, which a lot of people often struggle. And I've superset that, as you'll see in a moment, with what we call a chaos banded row. Now, again, if you are in grappling, you're in grappling sport, you're in rugby, this is going to be really key. I'm going to show you why now. So this is the chaos banded row. Again, I'm in a split stance position. Now, if I'm trying to break somebody's grip, break somebody's guard, get past somebody's guard, or I'm trying to pull their rash guard and get into a position, this is going to be key because I'm trying to move my way into it. I'm trying to manipulate their position. Because if I can improve my pulling power and my pulling strength, it's going to train a little bit of reactivity. It's going to train a little bit of posture under fatigue and postural control under speed. So for me, not only are we training hockey, boxing, any type of sport you can apply to, this applies to everything. Really simple exercise. So if you're looking for some regressions with this, maybe with particularly the landmine press, you might do a landmine press, you might do a dumbbell. You could actually put a med ball into your hand and just push it away from you. There's another example. With the row, you could just do a dumbbell variation. But I do think the landmine row and the landmine press is an accessible pattern of movement pretty much everybody can do. Unless there are any real limitations, which I'm yet to come up against. Yet to come up against an athlete that can't do these type of movements, but most of you can do these. And then finally, I wanted to add a little bit of accessories. So I always love to finish with a pull-up variation and some loaded calories. So for me, I did some strict pronated pull-ups and supersetted that with some neutral pulls as well, just to hit different lines of the lats, a little bit different scap control. And then I supersetted this with some kettlebell bars carries on as heavy as I could. And I just walked up and down this space. You won't see it on this video. I just walked up and down this space. I think I used 32 kilos and just held on and did as long as I could in a 60-second window. Really simple. It was really, for me, about improving a little bit of integrity around my trunk when I'm under fatigue, really making sure I could do my pull-ups under fatigue because it's just one of those things that I think is really powerful. But not only that, there's also a little bit around grip strength as well. So if you wanted to regress these exercises, a band-assisted pull-up is really easy. And an easy way I like to look at this is if you are doing band-assisted pull-ups, rather than stick the band up here on the pull-up bar and have it coming all the way down and putting your foot through, a really easy trick is to do a horizontal banded pull-up. So place it on the J clips here, wrap it around there, and then just step onto it, and it makes it so much more comfortable. So these sessions are so important. Personally for me, especially if you are an athlete and you're trying to improve athletic development in some way, shape, or form. So just a kind of bit of a recap on that. Why is this session so important? Remember, with a dynamic effort session, I'm trying to improve explosive hip triple extension movements. I'm trying to improve a bit of upper body speed, power, and drive. There's a little bit of neuroefficiency. And what I mean by that is the body communicating effectively under speed and under power. That's another important component that we often don't think about. And then to round out this session, there was a little bit of grip, a little bit of trunk stability, and a little bit of positional work as well. So if you're a BJJ athlete, guess what? It means faster when you're scrambling, faster getting into transitions. If you're in the tactical space, it means moving kit, climbing, reacting under pressure better. And if you're somebody who's a hybrid athlete, it's the difference between being fit and being incredibly dangerously fit. That's the difference. And that's what I want you to just consider. And I'm just going to bring up a little bit of a screen grab here. So for any of you that have got this here in front of you, you've got our A series, our B series, our C series, our D series, and our E series there. So what the focus was, what the outcome and stimulus was, and how these can be layered into a session. You don't have to use these exercises. These are just simple examples that you can throw together. So they're not flashy by any stretch of the imagination. They are somewhat foundational, and I don't do a massive load of volume of this. They are centered around performance. They're centered around durability. They're centered around improving athletic power. And if you want sessions built like this around your goals that have the right progressions, right intensity, right structure, this is exactly what we do in the Catalyst Project. And it's how we help our athletes become athletic weapons. Train fast, train smart, and just be a dominant force in whichever sport they are getting into and chasing after. So if you've watched this video, you found it useful. I hope you found it really useful. I hope you found it helpful, and it gives you a little bit of an understanding about what dynamic effort really looks like. And you want help, drop me a message, drop me or my team the message. We've got an incredible team collective, whether it's about one-to-one coaching, our Catalyst Conjugate pathway, give us a message, let us know. And as always, for anybody that's watched this, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Did you enjoy this type of video? Did it give you some food for thought? Did it give you something to think about? Did it give you a little bit of motivation to go, do you know what? Maybe this is some of the stuff that I could add into my program. Always welcome to hearing ideas from anybody that watches the content that we stick out. And hopefully it's been something that's useful for you as well. Until the next video, ladies and gents, I will see you very soon.